Welcome to Sports Spectrum, the sports and faith podcast that brings Jesus back into the conversation. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
Welcome, everyone, to the Sports Spectrum podcast. Before we get to our interview with Matthew Boyd, the Detroit Tigers pitcher here on the Sports Spectrum podcast, I want to tell you about our Sports Spectrum magazine. $18 for an entire year gets you the Sports Spectrum magazine subscription, and it's a great gift. If you're looking for something to give to someone this Christmas, this holiday season, somebody that loves sports and loves faith, loves Christ, this is the place to go. This is the magazine. You want it. I'm telling you, it's a great magazine. $18 for an entire year. Get it as a gift for your friend, your family member, for a church member, for somebody who's a member of a youth group or a ministry, a men's ministry. It is a great idea for a gift. I'm telling you, our magazine is so well done. Aaron and John taking great care of the magazine, doing a great job with the design and all of the content inside of it. $18 for an entire year. Subscribe to the Sports Spectrum magazine by simply going to sportspectrum.com. Today's guest on the podcast is Matthew Boyd, Detroit Tigers pitcher. Matthew was selected in the 6th round of the 2013 MLB Draft by the Toronto Blue Jays. He made his Major League Baseball debut June 26th of 2015 with Toronto against Texas, and then a month later, on July 30th, he was traded to Detroit in the David Price deal, and he is still there today with the Detroit Tigers. He earned his first Major League Baseball win August 5th of 2015 in a 2-1 win over Kansas City. He went 7 innings, 7 hits, 1 run, no walks, 2 strikeouts, and got his first victory. In 2018, this past season, he had his best season yet. Started 31 games, 170 innings, 159 strikeouts, and led the team in wins with 9. That is the Detroit Tigers. Matt is also a contributor to The Increase, which are articles you can read at sportspectrum.com. First-person articles that Matthew pens and writes and shares with us here on our website. And I thought it'd be good, since we read a lot of articles about Matt, that we get him on and kind of hear his baseball journey and talk to him a little bit about just what he thought about this season, which was his most productive season yet as far as being a baseball pitcher, and then kind of learn about his faith journey, which was a pretty interesting one. He's got a great story to share about an opportunity he had to sign with the Cincinnati Reds, and then just felt like God said, nah, it's not the right time. And then so many amazing things happened with him returning to college. He played his college ball at Oregon State. So on this episode, we talk about baseball, we talk about faith, we also talk about his nonprofit that he started in 2018 called Kingdom Home, which is really amazing work being done in Uganda, and Matthew's a part of that. So I'm going to let him tell you all about that. Let's get to our podcast interview with Matthew Boyd, Detroit Tigers pitcher, here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. Matt, welcome to the program.
Hey, Jason. Thanks for having me on.
It's good to talk to you, Matt. Now, I know you just finished your 4th MLB season and your first where you were in the starting rotation in the majors the entire year. And obviously the team didn't do as well as you would hope, but you had a pretty big year. It was your best year statistically. I'm curious from your perspective as a pitcher how you would rate your performance this year.
I was very happy with how the year went on a personal level.
Yeah.
On a team level, we have room to grow, and I have much room. That's a lot on me. I had a lot of opportunities to get better and help my team out where I could have been, but where I could have last year. But I got to say, I'm very, grateful for this year. It was a year of growth, and I have an idea. I shouldn't say that. I know what I need to do to be better and kind of take the turn, and I'm very, very much excited for it, and excited to kind of implement those changes this offseason and go forth next year for it.
Absolutely. It sounds like you're enjoying your off season. I hear a little one in the background. Tell me about what the off season's been like thus far.
Yeah, she's right here. Mira Joy is right here. It's been awesome. It's been really cool just to be to be present, to be around, the whole time, not leaving on any road trips, getting to see her grow and learn and just, wonder about everything. It's been really special. Just getting to be here for her at every moment, getting to be here for my wife at every moment. It's been truly special and kind of just life-giving. And, it's been cool though. The big highlight of our off season is, going to Uganda. We go here over Thanksgiving. So we're really excited. We're going for our organization, Kingdom Home, our nonprofit that we started that rescues we've rescued kids from the sex trade. And so far we've rescued 36 girls from ages 8 to 14 from the sex trade, and we have them in our home right now. So we're excited to go see our other 36 daughters over in Uganda here not too long, and it's going to be pretty cool. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about Kingdom Home. I'm going to get to that in a little bit because I know what you're doing is incredibly important work, and I'm excited to even talk about that Uganda trip to a little deeper and kind of what that's going to entail. Let's go back on the field real quick, Matt. What was the toughest part this season for you just on the field? What was the toughest battle you had to work through? I guess from a baseball perspective, we'll start with.
Well, from a baseball perspective, everything's so much connected. Baseball, spiritual, it's all the same.
Sure,
and
sure.
When you're not right with your walk with our Father, it rears its head in every place. And I kind of came to a place in the middle of the year of where I hit a little bit of a rough spot and on the field, and it was tough. That's going to happen. It's inevitable. I had to make some adjustments. I was throwing too many breaking balls and getting away from my fastball. Luckily, I got back to it, and about 3 starts later, and that's when things really started taking off for me at the end of the year. Whether the numbers show it or not, it really. Things started really going upward from there. And it was all about getting a hold of my fastball and commanding it, a difference between just throwing it for a strike, but actually throwing it to where you want it, throwing it to the bottom corner, the bottom of the zone, throwing it to the outside corner, that sort of thing. So that was a big turning point for me right in the middle of the season on the field. That really kind of turned it around for me, I guess, going forward.
How about off the field? I know spiritually you kind of say they're all intertwined, but what about maybe the biggest battle spiritually during this season, or maybe any season now that you've been doing this for a few years? Well,
in the past, my performance dictated kind of who I was as a person, and God gave my wife so much grace to put up with me in those circumstances because I was probably not the nicest person coming home from some days. And, you get depressed, especially early on when you really don't have a lot of success. You don't really understand that it's all part of kind of the learning curve. You don't understand that getting better from that. You see as everything kind of as a live and die kind of moment,
Yeah.
I get that was always a struggle in the past, and it got better as I started putting my eyes on the Lord more than anything else. And a big concept for that this year was truly going to Him every day in prayer. That was kind of a turning point in my life in last off season where it was like, I can't think of the actual scripture. It is in Matthew, but don't worry about tomorrow, for today is enough worries of itself. And that's just today is where His grace is perfected. Yeah. If our eyes and our heart is centered with Him, tomorrow shouldn't matter because He's going to lead us right to a perfect plan that's bigger than anything that we've ever imagined, beyond our own plans. And I was really getting in the past, worrying about the future, worrying about the next day, worrying about everything, worrying about staying in the big leagues. This year, that was Him working on my heart where I had struggles, but they didn't last a month. They lasted a few starts. And mostly because He had my eyes focused on just the present moment. And then when I got home, I was a father. And then when I walked through that threshold of the locker room, I was a baseball player. And, His grace is perfected in the moment. And because of that, I had eyes to see things that I was blind to in the past, such as, maybe looking truly in the mirror and seeing what I did matter-of-factly. Oh, I need to do this better and this better, as compared to worrying about, 100 different other things that really had no bearing on what the root problem was. And because of that, I was able to kind of put a lab coat on. My daughter is playing in her kitchen right here. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I was kind of able to put that lab coat on, kind of perspective, and say, okay, I need to do X, Y, and Z better on the field. And because of that, it made it very easy to kind of go forward from there and grow from that. And then going home, I was able just to be a dad, be able to play in the kitchen here with my daughter with a smile on my face, as compared to worrying about, oh man, I hope I show up to the field tonight with my good breaking ball. I'm just trusting that, the Lord's got me. Yeah. I know what I need to do, and I trust that He's going to fulfill, everything He has for me. And, that breaking ball is going to be there because He has the power to do that,
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
to undersell Him by any means, but truly trust in that. Truly trust with all your heart and all your mind and all your soul. And He will give you those things.
That scripture I think you're referring to earlier is Matthew 6:34. It says, "Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about its own things. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble." So that's a really good scripture.
Amen.
And a good reminder. It's a great reminder that tomorrow is, in His hands, and we don't need to worry about tomorrow. So good stuff there. We're talking to Matthew Boyd here on the Sports Spectrum podcast from the Detroit Tigers. Matt, tell us about baseball and life as a kid growing up. What was that like for you? Was sports always something that you played at an early age?
It was. Sports were always a big deal. I watched sports with my dad. We always played. It was always a lot of fun. And they definitely have been a huge part of my family and my growing up.
Absolutely. Now tell us about faith. Faith, where that stem from? I know your faith is obviously important to you already in our discussions here. When did that sort of take shape for you? And then obviously there's a difference between taking shape and the day or the moment that you make your faith your own. So tell us about your faith journey.
Well, it's been a walk, that's for sure. It hasn't been a sprint by any means. It's been a walk, and God has used so many moments in my life to kind of bring me closer to Him, bring me closer to understanding kind of what He has for me to an extent. Obviously, it would be naive to think I have it all made now. It's going to look different a week from now than it does today. How He just continues to work in my life. But I grew up in a Christian home. My parents were believers. Their parents were believers. So grateful for that. It really laid the groundwork for what my walk would be later in life, and seeing them as an example every day and learning about Jesus' love for us, God's love for us, the sacrifice that He made for us was amazing. That being said, there were moments in my life where my faith did become my own. The trials and hardships, among other things, when I realized how He was continuing to work in my life, how He was always at work, and how He was starting to be more present than I ever had my eyes open to. I remember a point in college where I started truly relying on the Lord. It was a point, there were many moments before this, but this point was something truly that kind of moved me. My first 2 years in college, I was an All-American, played on Team USA. Things were going really well on the field. I was getting ready to sign after my junior year when I became draft eligible. So going into that junior year, I was, the setup man closer again, doing my normal thing, and kind of weird thing happened. Baseball started defining who I was. It was kind of weird. I'd never really been that way, but if I had a good game, I came home and I was, a person that was pleasant to be around. If I had a bad game, well, stay away from me,
Yeah.
And I remember I had a weekend in there where I didn't do too well. Because of that, it cost me playing time, and I thought it was unfair. And in reality, I really should have looked in the mirror and tried to understand what I needed to do better. But I thought it was unfair, and I got selfish, and I lost playing time. And I think at that point I was so ready just to be done with school, ready to go home, or ready to not go home, but ready to just get drafted and sign for a plane ticket, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I'm just ready to get out and go start my own career on my own. The draft happened. I was drafted much lower than I thought I was going to be. From what the talks with the scouts were, I thought I was going to get drafted higher. Everything was agreed upon for the draft. You know how it works when out of college. If you sign before your senior year, they offer to finish the rest of pay for the rest of school for you. So, that was the deal. They were going to finish the rest of school for me. We had a dollar amount on top of that,
right,
for the Cincinnati Reds, and it was all ready to, hop on a plane to Goodyear, Arizona, and start my pro career. I get off the phone with them, and it comes to the point where it was like, I was like, wow, something is uneasy in me. I really would have signed for whatever the cost of that plane ticket was the day before. I was ready to get out of there.
Right.
But something was holding up my heart. So for the first time, I truly went to the Lord in prayer and was asking God, hey, if there is a reason that I'm not supposed to play pro baseball right now, I'm supposed to come back to Oregon State, just make it clear to me. Truly, make it something that I can't miss. Well, the guy calls telling me the next day he calls telling me, I've got your contract in hand. We'll be there later that day to sign. Then he kind of said what it was, and it was only 1 quarter of college. Usually that's the easy part of the deal. It's something that, doesn't really cost the team any money. I think it comes from a general fund from MLB. So I was like, oh, I actually needed 4 quarters, not just 1. He's like, oh, I'll come back. Let me get back to you, talk to my coordinator. And he goes, you know what? Well, we're not going to be able to do that. I was like, oh, so we kind of bargained back and forth. And about the 3rd day, I realized, I was like, I prayed for a sign, and it's right in front of me. I'm not supposed to go. So I thanked the Lord. I booked a plane ticket to Cape Cod, and I went out and played summer ball and came back for that senior year.
Wow.
That senior year, I met my wife. Would have never met her before that.
Yeah.
I saw a few teammates come to Christ. We won a Pac-12 championship, and we went to Omaha and took 3rd.
Yeah.
And I was drafted 6 rounds higher. So many things changed. I got to start that season too, where I was a reliever the first 3 seasons, and now I'm a starter in the big leagues. I haven't relieved since. So it's so many things happen that way, and it just started with walking in faith, and just shows that his plans are so much bigger than our own. His plans are so much grander than anything that we could ever imagine. But we just need to walk in faith with him, and that was a huge turning point in my faith, and a point where I really, for the first time, started walking with the Lord in a way that I hadn't previously.
Talking to Matthew Boyd here from the Detroit Tigers and the Sports Spectrum podcast. Let's talk about 2015, kind of a crazy year for you. You make your Major League Baseball debut with Toronto, and you were drafted by Toronto. I don't know if you alluded to that, but you were drafted by Toronto and the Blue Jays, and a month later, then you're traded to Detroit, and that's where you are still now. But then you're up and down from the minor leagues to the major leagues. You get your first win in August of that year in 15. Tell me about 2015. I mean, that's got to do a test on your faith, too, when you see everything good and maybe not so good happening as you're getting your shot at the big leagues, but then you're getting shipped out in a trade.
Yeah. It was a crazy year. That was our first year of marriage, too. So,
there you go.
My wife
that onto it, too, right?
Yeah, exactly. My wife was a professional mover. We played for 5 different teams that year.
Wow.
Manchester in AA, Buffalo in AAA, the Blue Jays, and then Toledo in AAA, and then Detroit. And my wife got very, very good at packing the back of our truck up in about 4 hours' notice and moving towns. And it was crazy, but it was so fun, so filling. You think you're going to be with the team that you get drafted with, and you're going to win a World Series with them, and end a 20-year career with them. But that's not always the case. And they were in a playoff push, and they had a chance to go get David Price, and the Blue Jays did that, and it worked out for them. They got to the ALCS that year. Was a few games away from getting to the World Series, and we ended up in a city in the Midwest that we never knew about, that we'd never been to.
Yeah.
And it just turned out to just have God's hand all over it. It was so special. It was so cool. Just so amazing. I mean, we're truly where we're supposed to. We're truly where God has us. Where He wants us. I can't say enough good things. I mean, we're so grateful to be where we are, and it's all because of his plan. And, that was a crazy year, though, especially from going from a big league debut that went pretty good to the next day, or a start later, only getting not even getting an out in my start against the Red Sox, and getting set down right after that, and then traded 2 weeks later. It was an emotional roller coaster, and it was very, very tough. But it's like I said, in the moment it was hard to pick my head up, but God to kind of grew me in that, and it's where I am today, and he is because of where I am today, and I'm just so grateful for that.
But 5 places in 5 different teams in 5 different cities, that's got to be, man, I don't know. I mean, especially you said that's the year you got married, and I know I've been married 19 years now, and my wife is amazing, but we moved twice and really 3 times in 19 years. And we moved 5 times in one, basically 4 or 5 months. That's got to be incredibly difficult to kind of walk through, or maybe it's just par for the course. It's just kind of what comes with the territory.
It's what comes with the territory, but we had, and I speak from my wife's perspective, we actually had every reason to be bitter or frustrated or mad, and she did it with a happy heart, and home was where we were together. And
That's good.
It just at that point, I mean, I had a 7 the year before, and a 7 ERA in AA the year before. I went up and down between Dunedin, Florida, and Manchester, New Hampshire, pretty much every month while we were engaged. And it was she was back in Portland, but it was a first year time I'd ever struggled really in baseball, and it was kind of eye opening. And God grew me a lot from that. And in that sense, going on that same note, going into the next year, we were just so grateful not only to have success in the minors and have success, in the big leagues, and then get traded to an organization that truly wanted me. I mean, we just knew that this is where God had us for one reason or another. Whether it be shown to us today, whether it never be shown to us, or whether it be shown to us 4 years from that day we got traded, we knew he just was going to have us here for perfect reasons, and we had to walk faithfully in that. And that was my hat's off to her for making a home wherever we were in that sense.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I know you've written on our website, it's the Increase articles, increase.com, certainly part of sportspectrum.com, about many topics, including marriage and parenting. So let's dive into that just a bit now. You've been married a few years. It's Ashley, right? Your wife?
Yeah.
And dad to the little girl that we've been hearing in the background, which is wonderful.
Exactly.
What's some of the biggest lessons you can share about marriage and parenthood that you've taken away over the past few years? Just things that, especially over the past year and a half with your daughter, but just some lessons that you've learned that you could share.
Holy smokes. I don't even know where to start, but I mean, I'm so grateful to be on the team that I'm on with these two. That my wife is amazing. She gives me grace when I struggle. But she is a saint, and she does so much for our family in that sense.
Matt, baseball is such a grind. It starts, I mean, you could even say the off season, you're still working, and then it starts in February when you get to spring training and going through the end of September. What does faith look like for you during such a long season? Obviously, this year you would probably be the best example of being married, having a little one. But for you, the daily disciplines, you said that was important to you every day, getting in prayer every day. But what type of disciplines were you able to instill through your team to help fulfill you in the Lord and help build you up in the Lord, whether it was Bible studies, chapels, whatever it looked like? What did that look like for you?
Well, I mean, one of my closest friends on the team is James McCann. And, I don't know how many nights we spent just going back and forth off each other and just talking about faith, talking about life, talking about the game, talking about why God was doing something or why this was happening in our life, all those sorts of things. And, those having a brother in Christ in that circumstance was huge. Just walking daily, knowing that you have someone that understands what is going on, understanding the spiritual battle that's going on daily in the world that we truly can't see, but that is so present right around us. And then, couple that with, we had an awesome group of believers on our team where we had a Bible study. So various towns that we were in, even at home, praying with the guys, going through stuff. Just it's the second year we've worked through a Bible study, and some of them are different things that are applicable in life, daily life things that, men have to deal with, or just, going through the Word together. We've had both those going on, and it's been life-giving, and it's been truly awesome in that sense.
We had James on the podcast a year ago. Before, I think he was expecting twins at the point, and then he had his babies. And I know it's got to be an interesting kind of connection when that's your catcher and you're the pitcher, and you're forming a bond that's deeper than, because the bond between pitcher and catcher is deep as it is on the field and playing baseball, but even deeper when you can take that off the field.
Completely. It's awesome. It only helps the chemistry on the field. It helps it when you go, man, what the heck were you thinking when you put that down? And he goes, what the heck were you thinking when you threw that? And it's it allows us to really grow and but also just truly be, open with each other in that sense. And it's I'm very grateful for it.
A couple more questions here with Matthew Boyd, the Detroit Tigers pitcher. Matt, not only was 2018 your most successful season as a pitcher on the field, but off the field, and you talked about it earlier, you started the nonprofit called Kingdom Home with your wife, Ashley. Tell us about why you started that. And I know you kind of alluded to earlier what it entails, but go a little deeper on why you started it, what it entails, and then maybe expand a little bit on the trip to Uganda that you guys have coming up.
Yeah, well, it's a nonprofit. It's called Kingdom Home. Our website is kingdomhome.org. And yeah, we opened a children's home. We partnered with a lady there. Her name's Dorothy, in Uganda, and we have rescued 36 girls from ages 8 to 14 from the sex trade, whether that was prostitution rings, forced child marriages, or other monstrosities of the sex trade. We've brought them in, and we're giving them food, education, clothing, a bed. Just giving them a home and teaching them the love of God, and it's been cool. It's been tough, but it's God's been truly moving in it. How we came about this? My wife's degree was in political science. She's always had a heart for social justice. She works for an organization called Remember New. That organization had a very similar concept, and they're global. They're in I think 30 different countries with about 130 homes, something like that. And my wife felt called to step away from Remember New last fall, not really knowing why. Nothing bad about the organization. She loved her job. She was able to work remotely. It was truly everything that we could have asked for in a job, but she felt God was leading her a different way. So we prayed about it, and it was clear. At that same time, we were like, okay, well, we want to serve the gospel. Is it stateside? Is it somewhere else? And we were praying about that. And, this has truly been just a little breadcrumb thing, day after day, going back all the way to last November. And after that point, we were kind of like, okay, December last year, we had a flight booked to Uganda. We felt God was calling us to Uganda, and we're going there. We didn't know why, had nothing about this home in mind. But through some friends, through the founder of the old organization, Remember New, he led us to this lady named Dorothy. And through the help of Remember New, they've really helped us build a nonprofit, helped us understand the inner workings of, what a home needs to have. They've done it so many times that they've got it down to an art. And I guess the very Cliff Notes version is 12 months later, here we are with Kingdom Home. And it's truly special. Our goal is right now it's just to provide for this one home in Uganda, but eventually build multiple homes, potentially in other countries, potentially stateside, and truly grow this thing as the Lord is leading us to grow it. So my wife and I, we leave in a few days, and we'll be there for about 8 days, and we're excited to check it out, excited to go get there, and we're going to go actually look for land to buy, that we can buy land and build a home on, that we could potentially have room for multiple homes on it in the future, and have agriculture and kind of that it could be self-sustaining. So we're really excited. Appreciate any prayers, and
Of course.
it'll be a lot of fun.
Tell me, go a little deeper if you can and explain, when you say rescued 36 girls, like how does that happen? I've talked to some of the guys from IJM before, and International Justice Mission obviously does a great work as well in this. But about how this works, have you been kind of debriefed, if you will, about how they go about doing this? I mean, obviously it's a wonderful thing, but how does that exactly happen?
So our lady who runs the home, Dorothy, our sister in Christ, she used to work for the Ugandan government, working to stop these things, and she became aware of, a few of these things. Different, cases came across her desk. One of them was an intercepted bus, I think, full of 14 girls, and
Wow.
at the time, there was no place for the Ugandan government to put them up. So essentially, they were going to orphan the kids again and restart the cycle, kind of just delaying the inevitable, right? If there's no home for them, they eventually, if you're an orphan, it's a high risk that you could end up back in something like this.
Right.
So she wasn't going to let that happen. She took them in under her own home. So that's how that, I'm getting a little bit off track, but yeah, so some of our girls have been rescued that way. Others have been children that have, ran away, and a few of them are on the prevention side too, where they have kids that were at risk and we're bringing them in. And that's what we truly feel that our mission is to stop the girls from even getting brought into this horrible monstrosity from the get-go.
Right.
Is to find the girls that are at risk, and boys too. It's not just girls, but find the kids that are at risk and then prevent them from even being there. Bring them into our home. And, our goal is that we're never going to age a kid out. We're going to provide vocational training and university, whatever way they want to go, and they will leave when, they're ready to leave. We're never just going to age them out and put them back on the streets where they could be at risk of it all over again.
It's powerful stuff. Kingdomhome.org is the website. Go check it out. If there's a way, I'm sure there's a way, Matt, to donate or be a part of what you guys are doing and make donations, that type of thing there. Yeah,
there is. There's a standard give button where you can give to just a general cause. Or you can, kind of the cornerstone of our foundation is the child sponsorship page. In that, it is you can see all our girls that are on there, and you can sponsor them at increments of $20 from $20 to $120 a month. And $120 a month provides for all the girls' needs, which is it's pretty crazy in the context compared to what it is here back stateside. But it's if you feel called, you can go see our girls on there, and you can sponsor a child. So either of those ways on the website, kingdomhome.org.
Kingdomhome.org. Got it, man. Okay, last question, and that's really great. I wonder, you said God had been working on you on a few things during this season of life, especially being present, I think was something you mentioned very early in the podcast. But it's the question that I always ask every guest here, so I'll ask it again. If it's the same answer, maybe it's a different answer. But what have you been learning from the Lord right now? What is God teaching you?
Well, and each day is a new thing. But something last night that really hit me was just being still. I don't know if anyone's ever felt that their prayer life has become stale in any way. That they find themselves maybe almost just repeating or petitioning, but not letting their heart and soul be behind it. And, I just came to a point yesterday where I started being overwhelmed, and I thought I was still, but there was always something to do, and there's always going to be something to do, but how can you stay still despite that? And, that was kind of the big thing. That's what he's been putting on my heart lately, is truly being present and still. And for about 30 minutes, I was able to do that last night in a meditation, and it was amazing. God, he just reveals himself, and then slowly it's just like you're just giving him everything. And that was huge for me last night. So that's kind of been my goal today, is being able to be still while you're doing everything, which kind of seems like an oxymoron, but it's very it's something that we need to do as believers, because that truly lets us allow him to do whatever he wants in our life. Let us to be able to hear that and know where our heart is. So that's kind of been my goal right now. and it's going to be my goal as we go to Uganda here during this week. And it's no wonder that that's happening at the same time. But if last night's any indication, I'm just so grateful to see what today will bring.
That's really good stuff there from Matthew Boyd, the Detroit Tigers pitcher, joining us here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. Matt, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for sharing your heart. And you know what? Maybe we're supposed to be potentially going down to spring training in February or March. And hopefully we can get down there into Florida and see you and catch up and find out about Uganda and all the great things the Lord has been doing in your life. But in the meantime, thanks so much, my friend. Great to talk to you.
Thank you for having me on, Jason.
Really great stuff there from Matthew Boyd from the Detroit Tigers. And it's interesting. I don't actually mind the fact that there was background noise and his little girl was playing. I think that just makes it real. Obviously, you want to try and be as professional and sounding as you can, but sometimes I just like the background noise. It shows that he's a dad and he's got a little girl playing right there next to him. And he talked about being present in his little girl's life. So that didn't bother me. I hope it didn't bother you. And I really loved his heart for people, his heart for the Lord, and certainly for the work he's doing. Again, his nonprofit is called Kingdom Home, and it's the website is simply kingdomhome.org, kingdomhome.org. And you can also tweet at Matthew. He's on Twitter at MattBoyd48, MattBoyd48. Hit him up there. Let him know that you heard this interview, and certainly check out his great work with his nonprofit and maybe consider supporting that as you look to give this holiday season for sure. And we thank Matthew for joining us here on the podcast. We thank you for listening. As always, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at sports_spectrum. And you can find all of our content at sportspectrum.com. And once again, want to encourage you to subscribe to our magazine, the quarterly magazine, $18 for an entire year. A really great tool to hand to people on the sports stories that intersect faith. $18. Go to sportspectrum.com and subscribe today. Thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast. We'll be back with another episode, brand new here on Sports Spectrum next time. Thanks for listening. Have a great rest of your day. This is the Sports Spectrum Podcast.